The neighborhood of Rolling Pines was the kind of place where time slowed down, where mailboxes matched paint swatches, lawns competed in quiet elegance, and the most scandalous thing to happen in a given week might be someone forgetting to bring in their trash bin on time. It was beige, orderly, and just rigid enough to remind you that every picket fence had a rule book behind it. And in the middle of it all lived me, Marcus Cole. 39 years old, 6'2", built like a guy who once played defensive tackle in high school and never fully let go of it. I liked my comfort. White tank tops, jeans with enough mileage to tell stories, and a pair of sandals that had molded to my feet like old friends. If I had a superpower, it was fixing things leaky faucets, misbehaving lawnmowers, crooked porch swings. Folks around the block knew me as that guy you call before paying a real professional. I did a little landscaping, 2-part hobby, part side gig. Nothing fancy, just enough to keep me busy, my muscles useful, and my mornings full of purpose. That Tuesday morning, though, was supposed to be a slow one. I just brewed a strong cup of coffee and was staring out my window at the overgrown weeds in my front yard, contemplating how little I wanted to fold laundry. That's when my phone buzzed. Brenda, one of my regular clients. Marcus, honey, she wheezed through the speaker. I gotta cancel today. My back's acting like it's trying to file for divorce. I chuckled. No problem, Brenda. You take it easy. We'll hit those hedges next week. Just rest, all right? She thanked me with a voice that sounded like rustling paper. And just like that, my morning was suddenly wide open. So I figured, why not pull some weeds, prune a few of my prized gladioli, and maybe give my front porch a once-over? And that was when I saw her. Across the street stood the neighborhood's unofficial dictator, Meredith Langston. To most, she was President Langston of the Rolling Pines Homeowners Association. To me, she was Meredith Meltdown. Picture the kind of woman who could make milk curdle just by glaring at it. Early 60s, always dressed in something 3 levels too formal for a Tuesday morning, an arresting expression that looked like she'd just smelled something offensive. She ran the HOA with the kind of iron grip that made you feel like your birdbath had better be within 2 inches of the approved schematic or she'd summon a tribunal. That day, she was standing on her lawn with her arms folded, so tight you'd think she was holding herself back from launching into space. Her gaze was laser-focused not on me, but on the tangled, storybook-worthy hedges that lined her property. These hedges weren't just overgrown, they were wild. Magical, like they belonged outside a Scottish castle, not in front of a beige McMansion. Squirrels probably held secret societies in there. And yet, I figured maybe Meredith was admiring my gladioli, which were currently blooming with the kind of radiant defiance that would make even the HOA rulebook blush. So like a fool, I waved. "Marcus," she hollered, voice like a fire alarm. "About time you showed your face. I need you to do something about these hedges." I blinked. "Good morning to you too, Meredith. What hedges are you talking about?" She stabbed a hot pink manicured finger at the leafy giants in her yard. "These monstrosities, mine, they're an embarrassment. I want them trimmed. Today. Now here's the thing. I might be handy, and I might be generous with my time, but I had one ironclad rule. I don't work for Meredith Langston. Not after the infamous mulch showdown of last year, when she insisted the bark I laid wasn't espresso brown enough and tried to stiff me half my rate. Sorry, Meredith, I said carefully. I'm actually working on my own place today, and I'm not taking new clients at the moment." That was like throwing a brick into a wasp's nest. Her face turned a furious shade of red, not burgundy or maroon, but full-on emergency stop button. "New clients? I'm not asking to be your client. I'm telling you to trim these hedges. This is about neighborhood standards, Marcus. Standards." I let out a sigh. "Look, Meredith, maybe call a landscaping service. There's a bunch of companies in town that. I don't need professionals. I need neighbors who take responsibility for keeping this community looking respectable. And I need peace and quiet," I said under my breath. Apparently, she heard me. Her eyes narrowed into slits. "Are you mocking me?" "No, I'm declining a job." "That's harassment," she shrieked, voice climbing into frequencies that should have shattered my window panes. "You're harassing me with your tone, your indifference, your failure to act." I raised both palms, like a guy trying to reason with a charging bull. "Meredith, I'm not harassing you. I'm just not available. That's all." Her eyes locked onto mine with a cold fire. Then she did something that made me question reality. She pulled out her phone. "Fine," she spat. "If you won't cooperate, I'll call the authorities." "You're kidding." But she wasn't. She dialed 911. I stood there dumbfounded as she recited my name to the operator, painting herself as the victim of some grand intimidation scheme over Hedges. I felt the surreal chill of dread crawl into my chest. I'm not a confrontational guy. I've never had a reason to fear the cops. But suddenly, I felt like I'd been sucked into a satirical courtroom drama written by someone on too much caffeine. "Ma'am," I said as calmly as I could, "you're calling the police because I said no to trimming your hedges? You're defying me, Marcus. This is a matter of community stability." 20 minutes later, a squad car pulled up. 2 officers got out, one young, one older. They spoke with her first. I watched from my window as she gestured like a windmill, clearly spinning a tale of unchecked menace. Eventually, they came to my door. "Mr. Cole?" the older officer asked. "That's me. We're following up on a report of neighborhood harassment." I exhaled slowly. "Yes, officer. I believe my neighbor called because I refuse to do yard work for her." "That's it. Hedges." "Yup, just Hedges." They exchanged a look, a bemused one. "Mind walking us through what happened?" I explained the whole saga, from a yelling to the HOA guilt trip to the 911 call. They took it in with nods, asked a few questions, and eventually the older officer said, "Mr. Cole, thank you. We're going to go explain to MS Langston that this doesn't qualify as a criminal matter." "Appreciate it." They returned to her yard. I watched her face contort with disbelief as they gently, but firmly, deflated her plans. She slammed her door so hard the wind chimes shook like they were traumatized. I thought that was the end of it. But karma had other plans. About an hour later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Sarah Alvarez, a local news reporter I'd emailed weeks ago about unfair HOA practices. Apparently, someone in the dispatcher's office had tipped her off. "Marcus," she said, almost giddy, "please tell me you're available. This story is golden." I hesitated, then remembered that I'd been quiet long enough. Meredith had bullied enough folks into silence. Why not turn the tables? "Come on over." 30 minutes later, Sarah and a cameraman were setting up on my porch. I recounted every detail. I even showed them pictures of the infamous Hedges and the HOA rulebook page Meredith had once mailed me with 4 separate highlighter colors. Sarah soaked it all up. When she was done, she strolled across the street and knocked on Meredith's door. "MS Langston," she said brightly. "Sarah Alvarez, Channel 5. I was hoping to speak with you about a 911 call earlier today regarding hedge maintenance." Meredith's face turned the color of a ripe tomato. "No comment," she hissed and slammed the door. That night, the story aired first segment. The anchor led in with, "A local neighborhood dispute took a bizarre turn today when a woman called police on her neighbor over landscaping." Footage of my interview rolled. Sarah's attempt to get statement. B-roll of the jungle-like Hedges. It blew up. Social media was merciless. Memes appeared overnight. My favorite showed a medieval knight standing before a hedge maze with the caption, "Only the bravest deny Meredith." Another had her Hedges with a speech bubble, "We're too leafy for your HOA." By the weekend, Meredith had become a cautionary tale and resigned from the HOA presidency. Neighbors who once feared her now waved at me with thumbs up. A few even slipped business cards in my mailbox asking if I did private gardening work. And a few days later, as I watered my lawn, I saw her walking slowly down the sidewalk. Shoulders hunched, expression empty. She paused in front of me. Her voice was quiet. "Marcus, I'm sorry. I went too far." I studied her. She looked human, vulnerable. "It's all right," I said. "Just treat folks better next time." She nodded and walked on. And that's how I survived the great hedge war of rolling pines. The lesson? Don't pick fights with a man who owns garden shears, gladioli, in a reporter's number on speed dial. Especially not over hedges that look like they eat lawn ornaments for breakfast.